Hello and welcome to The Woven Word, a series of 360-degree immersive videos in which we're going to introduce you to Ulster's rhyming weavers. This was a group of poets who mainly flourished in the 18th and 19th centuries, ordinary working class folk. Their writing shines a light on what it was like to live and to work in Ulster at that time, and mostly the poems are written in the beautiful vernacular Ulster-Scots. This is a 360-degree experience, and that means that you can virtually travel around with me. If you're at home sitting at your computer, use your mouse, move it around to look behind you, to look behind me, to look up and to look down. Or if you've got a VR headset, put that on and you'll be completely immersed in the experience. So for this programme, we're going to think about Thomas Given. Born near here, Cullybackey, just close to Ballymena, in 1850. He died in 1917, and in many ways, his poetry comes at the end of that flourishing period of the rhyming weavers. You would say it almost marks a kind of an epilogue. When he was living, society was marked by all kinds of changes. Societal, educational, technological, agricultural, everything was on the move. This cottage that I'm standing at, Arthur Cottage, would have been very well known to Thomas Given. It's a beautiful, typical vernacular Irish home, whitewashed, boulder built, with a thatched roof. Let's go inside and have a wee look to see what it was like. Well now, here we are inside this beautiful thatched cottage. And here's Michelle sitting by the Inglenook fireplace baking traditional Irish soda bread on a griddle over a turf fire. I wish you could smell this. It smells absolutely fabulous. The griddle suspended on links there from a crook crane. And this is a chance to use your VR headset or your mouse to look around. Over here we've got all the accoutrements of baking sitting on the wooden table with a lovely deep window, geranium plant. There we've got the butter, the churn, just behind the half door. There's the lovely old tiled floor with a ladder leading up to the half loft and an old settle bed in the corner, that pine bit of furniture which would fold out into a bed. There's the traditional dresser here against the wall with the blue and white delf, a spinning wheel at my foot, all the things you would find in a traditional Irish cottage. This was the homestead of the family of Chester Allen Arthur, who would go on to become the 21st President of the United States of America from 1881 to 1885. Our poet that we're discussing here, Thomas Given, he was alive at that time, and I'm sure he and all the people from this area of Cullybackey and County Antrim were very proud to think that one of their own was now the President in America. Thomas Given actually visited America himself. He went out to visit his brother Marcus in Philadelphia. Later, whenever he returned, he became a very successful scientific farmer, deeply interested in all things agricultural, and the farmland around this part of County Antrim is particularly good for farming. There were two other brothers living here as well, Patrick Given and Samuel Fee Given, and the three brothers in 1900 brought out a collection of poetry, all three of them writing. Patrick and Samuel Fee writing in English and Thomas Given writing in his own vernacular Ulster-Scots. Very popular book, over 200 people subscribed to that publication. Now, Thomas Given in particular really loved the Scottish poetry of Robert Burns, the Ayrshire bard. In fact, he travelled across to Ayrshire to stand on the Brigadoon to see the birthplace of his this man who he admired so much, Robert Burns. And you can find the influence of the Scottish verse forms in some of Thomas Given's own writing. The poem, which we'll shortly hear, which will be read for us by Matthew Warwick, is entitled A Nicht wi' a Cottier. And that kind of brings to mind the Robert Burns poem, The Cotter's Saturday Nicht, as well. There's some beautiful Ulster-Scots vocabulary. Let me give you a few examples. In the poem, what's happening is the farmer Joe has gotten up early on a cold winter's morning. You'll hear references to the birds because Thomas Given loved birds, loved wildlife, a little bit like Robert Burns in that sense, really admired all things pastoral. But the farmer Joe is heading out with his spade to the wintry field anyway. And even though he's a very poor man, he's very upright. He's got great morals. And he doesn't have a lot in life, but his family are well, his family are happy, and that's what matters to him. Thomas Given had a great social conscience. Again, in parallel with Robert Burns, he sympathised with the oppressed. He kind of deplored the greed of wealthy landlords and thought about the rights of tenant farmers. So this poem, A Nicht with a Cottager, wait till I read you some of the words I want you to look out for. Pronunciations first of all, like way for with, te for two, heim for home, clays for clothes, cold for cold, lacht for laughed, ut a secht for out of sight, simmer for summer, fa for fall, sick for such. All these lovely pronunciations. What about shothered for shouldered, a biggin for a building, scraws are sods of turf, and the phrase to cloak a bit fault means to overlook a small fault. You'll hear all of these words read by Matthew. While you hear him reading the poem, the words will appear up on the screen all around you. Or if you prefer to just enjoy some virtual tours around this Cullybackey area, if you use YouTube, just expand the description and jump forward to that section, and it means you can listen without the words. Just enjoy the beautiful surroundings here in Cullybackey. I hope you've enjoyed this. For now, Michelle and I are going to enjoy this soda bread. Thank you very much.
A Nicht with a Cottager by Thomas Gavin. The short day of winter, wi' storm clouds o'ercast, had entered its name and the roll o' the past. The sun near the south, wi' his thumb on the latch, made the sparrow and robin creep under the thatch. The whap and the gull turned their heads to the lake, and the kye wackled hame to their stray in the stake. The crows flew in flocks to the plantain's cowl shade, when wat sair and weary Joe shothered his spade and turned to his cot, a bit yan story beggin', wi' shoes for its thatch and green scraws for its riggin'. Though his claes were attended wi' money event, kind nature endowed him wi' wealth o' content. His wife's cheery smile and his bairn's laughing craw, I acted supreme to drive canker awa'. Nae stools o' repentance were seen near his hab, as truth was the waft that he wove in life's wab. He looked down in pride and on vain pretence, as he watched them show off before people o' sense, wi' deceit their twin brother, low sordid and vile, and he laughed at them a' wi' a humorous smile. He saw how ambition wi' self as its friend had withered and sank out of sicht in the end, as the leaves o' the plantain when summer's awa' are trod in the mire, so pride gets afa'. He watched for the man or the woman as well, wad think of their neighbour as well as their sell, or cloak a bit fought and no add to the same, but few earned the title or got sic a name. He wished for the time when grim falsehood would cease, when the world's supreme premier would break through its lace. He spoke to his bairns to keep truth in their sicht, as life begun macely, ended in recht. A Nicht with a Cottager by Thomas Gavin. The short day of winter, wi' storm clouds o'ercast, had entered its name and the roll o' the past. The sun near the south, wi' his thumb on the latch, made the sparrow and robin creep under the thatch. The whap and the gull turned their heads to the lake, and the kye wackled hame to their stray in the stake. The crows flew in flocks to the plantain's cowl shade, when wat sair and weary Joe shothered his spade and turned to his cot, a bit yan story beggin', wi' shoes for its thatch and green scraws for its riggin'. Though his claes were attended wi' money event, kind nature endowed him wi' wealth o' content. His wife's cheery smile and his bairn's laughing craw, I acted supreme to drive canker awa'. Nae stools o' repentance were seen near his hab, as truth was the waft that he wove in life's wab. He looked down in pride and on vain pretence, as he watched them show off before people o' sense, wi' deceit their twin brother, low sordid and vile, and he laughed at them a' wi' a humorous smile. He saw how ambition wi' self as its friend had withered and sank out of sicht in the end, as the leaves o' the plantain when summer's awa are throwed in the mire so pride gets afa. He watched for the man or the woman as well, wad think of their neighbour as well as their sel, or cloak a bit fought and no add to the same, but few earned the title or got sic a name. He wished for the time when grim falsehood would cease, when the world's supreme premier would break through its lace. He spoke to his bairns to keep truth in their sicht, as life begun macely, ended in recht.